And we're back here in the free section, lesson number 132, and it's the last one of 2012, which admittedly was not the best year for the free section, but 2013 is going to be a different story, a lot better for both.
Yeah, 2012 was definitely a little bit of a weird one over here at the 232, pretty much because we were working at a job that we hated, so we decided to quit, and we're getting back in, getting ready for 2013 and kind of really doing what we want to do.
Yeah, so just to clarify, this was not the job we hated. We've always liked this. We took another job in addition and then quit this year in 2012. So 2013, we're going back to what we always wanted to do. And sometimes you don't really appreciate what you had in the beginning until you get something that's worse in life, which was the other job. And now we've learned to appreciate doing this, and it's going to be all out effort and excitement. VIP is going to be off the charts, insanely good. And this, as Ad said, will just give you a little flavor, just a taste of what we have in store.
Right, so this is kind of a warm-up, pump-up for 2013. Hopefully you're feeling pretty warm. I'm feeling pretty good over here. And what are we talking about in this podcast anyway?
Well, we're talking about a good friend of mine, really a good friend of ours, and he's recently single. Again, we've talked about this character, this guy, quite a bit. We don't want to mention his name. That's not very nice in case he goes on and listens. But we knew he was going to break up. He was in one of these relationships where you just know at some point it's not going to work. He wasn't happy, you could tell, but you know, relationships, they're emotional, they take a long time. It's not easy to get out of it, but now he's out. He's finally out. He's finally single, and we're going to be in this podcast talking about how it is in his single life, how he's doing, what's going on, how he's feeling. It's pretty good. A lot of great terms in here. And then in the VIP, we're going to be doing additional bonus podcasts talking in more detail, more exciting stuff about what's really going on in his life. But this is kind of the first one, Ad.
Yeah, right. And I think that's pretty much a good time to be jumping into the dialogue. How's single life?
It's okay. It's relaxing. It's nice having the place to myself, but it can be kind of lonely at times. I don't have any friends with benefits anymore either.
Why don't you go hit up some clubs this weekend? This city is flooded with tons of hot single girls.
Clubs aren't my scene at all. I always seem to get too wasted and strike out when I go.
Come on, man. Everyone gets rejected sometimes. Don't think too much. You've just got to put yourself out there and things will be fine.
So this happens to everybody, after a breakup. You know, you're feeling good in some ways, a little bit lonely in other ways, a little bit out of practice at meeting new people, and you've got to get out somewhere. You don't necessarily have to go to the clubs, but you have to meet people. You can't just be lazy anymore. You got to find somebody new, and this is what this dialogue is talking about. How is the guy adjusting to his new life? What's good, what isn't? And the first term I asked him, or I'd asked, how's single life? And you can imagine what this means because you're not stupid. It's pretty easy. But it's a good phrase to realize. It's a set phrase. How's single life? How's single life? So it's a common question you ask when somebody is recently single. You do not ask this question to someone who's never had a boyfriend or girlfriend. That's just almost mean and weird. You ask this to a person who recently broke up or recently been divorced or been divorced for a while, because it is kind of a sensitive topic, so you got to think about that a little bit. And just on the other side, if you want to know if someone's gets into a serious relationship or they get married, even if they're not married but just in a serious relationship, you can say, how's married life? Because it seems like the person's so serious, they might as well be married. So how's married life? How's single life? And that's basically when to use them. how do you feel when you're single? How do you feel when you're in a serious relationship? Great ways to ask those questions.
Yeah, and a lot of times when people break up, there is a reason, and they're feeling pretty good, and someone might say something like, it's nice having the place to myself. Usually you're living with someone if you're married or have a girlfriend a lot of times, and you might say this afterwards. And in other lessons, we talked about someone's place being their house or their apartment. And if you have the place to yourself, it just means you're living alone or staying alone for that time. And you could say something like, my wife is out of town, so I'm going to have the place to myself this weekend. You guys should come over and play poker.
Yeah, so basically your wife's not going to be there annoying you. You're going to have some privacy. You're going to be alone so you can control what goes on in the house or the apartment. And, high school kids obviously don't want their parents being home. They don't own a house yet. So they could say, hey guys, my parents are going on a trip next month and I'm going to have the place to myself. We should throw a huge party. Parents obviously hate when kids do that, but kids always do that when they get the place to themselves. Well, not always, but a lot of times they do. It's a good idea to do it because it's fun to have the place to yourself. So you are not necessarily alone. You're not the only one there, but at least you are saying certain people aren't going to be there. So in this case, our friend is saying, he's got the place to himself in the sense that his girlfriend is no longer living there and driving him crazy. He's got some freedom, he feels.
Right, and if you have the place to yourself, it certainly wouldn't be bad to have a friend with benefits. And this is a very common term to talk about, a guy and a girl who are friends, but then sometimes they sleep together for fun. And they're not in a serious relationship at all, but they may be both single and just want to have someone they trust to sleep with sometimes.
Yeah, I believe there's a recent movie with the title Friends with Benefits at. I think Jennifer Aniston's in that one from Friends, the show. And if she's not, my apologies. I saw the movie, totally forget it, but, kind of a romantic comedy, I think. But very common term, that's the point. And as Ad said, yeah, you're guy and girl who are friends, but you're more than friends, and that's the benefit. So you don't have a serious relationship, but you get to fool around or, do whatever you want to do. And it's okay. You're still friends. You're not treating each other really mean the way boyfriends and girlfriends do sometimes. The expectations are lower, so you're still friends, but you have the added benefit of doing what you can imagine friends with benefits might do. Very common term. If you want to meet a friend with a benefit or you want to meet somebody in this sort of context, you might want to hit up the clubs. A lot of people pretend they just want to go dancing or hang out with their friends. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. We all know why people go to the clubs. It's fine. But if you hit up the clubs, it means you go to the clubs. You just go out with your friends, get drunk, see what happens.
Yeah, and the clubs are a great place to go to because they are flooded with hot chicks. A lot of times, anyway, I guess depending on the clubs you go to. But flooded just means that it's a place that has a huge amount of that thing. So I could say, for example, that club is flooded with hot girls on the weekends. Or my school is flooded with idiots.
Yeah, so flooded just means a lot of, it's overloaded. There are lots. Doesn't always have to be a good thing. Certainly doesn't have to be a good thing. So having a school flooded with idiots is not a good thing. Got a lot of idiots. But a club flooded with hot chicks for most guys, a great thing. So just a lot of them. Some people don't like clubs, though. A lot of people do not. And if you don't, or you don't like some kind of place, activity, or a certain type of a group of people, you could say, this is not my scene. And that means you don't like it, you don't feel comfortable with it, you don't really want to do it. So you could say, clubs are not my scene, so you don't like going to clubs. Or you could say, Steve, he's a cool guy, but a lot of people he hangs out with aren't really my scene. So now you're talking about these people that Steve hangs out with. You're saying they are not your scene. Very slang, but common. And that means that you like Steve. You like hanging out with him. You don't really like the people he hangs out with. You don't necessarily hate them, but they're not your scene. They are not people you feel comfortable hanging around with. You kind of feel bored or weird or whatever. You just don't want to hang out with them because they're not your scene.
Yeah, right. And often when you go to the clubs, you may drink too much and even get wasted, which is the next one. And wasted is just getting really drunk. You could say something like, I'm only drinking beer tonight. I know I'll get too wasted if I start drinking vodka. And this has certainly happened to me many a times. You may have seen my vodka Red Bull video on YouTube. I don't do that anymore because I get too wasted all the time.
Yeah, so we have talked about this before. You may know what it is, may not, but great terms. So now you doubly know what it is, wasted. And remember, a lot of people make this mistake when they're learning English. It's not off any substance, it's just alcohol. Wasted is you just feeling really drunk from alcohol, nothing else. So it's just good to know. You're going to sound a little bit cooler if you know that exactly. Something that's not very cool, but we all do it from time to time, is strike out. And if you strike out in a situation, it means that you failed. And we often use this in a dating context when you're hitting on some girl. Usually it's guys are hitting on girls. That's just sort of the general flow of things. That's how it generally goes, not always. But anyway, if a guy strikes out with a girl, it didn't go so well. He didn't get what he planned on getting. So I could say, I cooked a romantic dinner for Kim last night, but still somehow totally struck out. So maybe he tried, or maybe I, in the situation, tried to kiss her and she wasn't having any of it. She didn't like it, didn't want to do it. Maybe I wanted something else physically and she said no. So I had some plan, didn't work. And even if you ask a girl for her phone number and she says no, that's still striking out. You didn't get what you were planning on getting. Another one I could say, I struck out after only about 20 seconds of talking to that girl. So basically I started talking to some new girl, maybe in the line of a Starbucks or something like that. She didn't like it. Conversation was not going very well and we had to stop talking. So I certainly did not get her phone number. She was not interested. Struck out, just didn't work. So everybody strikes out, but everybody hates it. Just failing in that situation sucks, Ed.
Right, and another way of saying that you struck out is saying that you get rejected. And if you get rejected, it just means that you strike out when you try to get a phone number, a date, a kiss, or something, when you're basically trying to date or at least ask someone to go on a date.
Yeah, so you offer something like that, a date, ask for a phone number, a movie date, you go for the kiss, you get rejected. They didn't accept, didn't work, so you struck out, you got rejected. Last one, another good one, no surprise, put yourself out there. If you put yourself out there, it means that you put yourself in a situation where you might be successful. Of course, you might fail, you might strike out, but you might be successful. So, for example, if you are looking to meet a guy or a girl, going to a club is one way of putting yourself out there. So you're putting yourself in a situation, in an environment where things might happen. Staying home in your apartment is not really putting yourself out there.
Right, and another example is if you're looking for a new job, then telling your friends and handing out resumes is putting yourself out there.
Yeah, so we've talked about this in our business lessons. We're going to be doing more of that in 2013 about how to get a job. This is not a particularly good way of getting a job, but at least you're putting yourself out there in some sense. You're giving yourself a chance to succeed. That's what putting yourself out there is at.
Right, and that's pretty much why we were putting this podcast out again. We want to get back out there. We're going to be doing a lot of new lessons very soon in the new year, and we'll see you next time at www.china232.com.